Bellator 300 this Saturday night from the Pechanga Arena in San Diego, California. 3 title fights for Bellator 300 this weekend. I know the poster still has 4 title fights, but unfortunately Linton Vassell is out of the rematch with Ryan Bader for the heavyweight championship, so down to 3 title fights, main evented by Usman Nurmagomedov. It's part of the lightweight Grand Prix. He'll be taking on Brent Primus. For the featherweight championship, Chris Cyborg is challenged against Kat Zingano, and then for the flyweight championship, you have got Liz Carmouche taking on Alima Lay McFarlane. 16 fights in this card for Bellator 300. No, it is not the final Bellator card. They'll be back in about a month's time in Chicago, Illinois from the Wintrust Arena. You've got Yaroslav Amosov taking on Jason Jackson for that card, but that's not for another month. We've got Bellator 300 right now. It seems like Bellator is going to be sticking around. It looks like the PFL is going to buy Bellator and then keep them going as their own separate thing, kind of what Zuffa did with WEC and Strikeforce back in the day for a little bit. So let's get into it, but first, folks, if you haven't yet, though, make sure that subscribe button down below for some more MMA here on the channel. And also go make sure to check out our UFC Vegas 80 predictions with Grant Dawson and Bobby King Green in the main event. Link is in the description down below. Let's now get into the 16 fight card, starting at first with the first 4, because yeah, there's 16 fights and some of these aren't all that meaningful. Now, for some reason, Tapology does not have the correct bout order on their website, or on Tapology, so I had to kind of like scramble, make my own bout order, but because it's just completely messed up. But first up, you got Josh Hokett taking on Spencer Smith. This is the first fight of the night. We're going to be going with Josh Hokett to win by first round knockout. This is a guy, not much on him, honestly. He's a 25-year-old fighter coming out of Fresno, California. He is a heavy favorite in this fight, taking on Spencer Smith, who on Tapology has 4 amateur fights. He's 2-2, coming off back-to-back losses, both by TKO in the first and second round. There's not much to say about this fight. It seems like Hokett, of course, is the guy that Bellator is promoting here, meaning he's going to beat this cannon Spencer Smith. Josh Hokett is going to win this fight by first round knockout. That's pretty simple. Next up, we will have Lorani Santos taking on Jackie Cataline in this fight. Going to be going with Santos to win this one. This is going to be at the featherweight division, which means, you win a fight, you're basically in the top 10 in the Bellator 145-pound division. It will be Santos's first fight here in the Bellator cage. She's on a 6-fight winning streak, has shown decent grappling so far, taking on a fighter here in Cataline who has lost back-to-back fights. She's coming off a loss to former PFL lightweight lightweight runner-up in the championship fight. I'm talking about Taylor Gordano. Gordano, of course, fought Kayla Harrison back in the PFL in 2021. Never got a call back to the PFL after going 3-1 that season. However, her last fight just a couple months ago was against Jackie Cataline. I don't know why Gordano's not getting this shot in this spot, but it's okay. They give it to Cataline instead. She's lost her last 2 fights. She fought in the PFL Challenger Series twice, won the first one, lost the second one to Evelyn Martins. I'm not all that impressed. She's fought actually 4 times in the PFL. She fought twice in the Challenger Series in 2022, went 1-1. Fought twice in 2023, went 1-1. Not impressed. Give me Lorani Santos to win this fight by decision. I think the grappling's too much, and I think she's the better fighter on the ground. Next up, I know it's cut off, but Bryce Meredith taking on Miguel Pimbert here. Going to go with Bryce Meredith to win this fight by first round submission. It kind of sells itself. Meredith, of course, 4-0 professionally, coming off that rear naked choke finish in the second round against Brandon Carrillo back earlier this year. Fought in LFA as well. He went 3-0 over there. Again, wrestling base, 28 years old. Meredith's, again, another one of these guys. He came out of the University of Wyoming. He's one of these wrestlers that Bellator is pushing, and he has, been pretty good for them so far. Of course, 1-0, taking on a 2-2 guy who fought in Bellator against Bobby Serrano last year. We're going to talk about Serrano later. He lost Serrano by unanimous decision. I think Pimbert is going to get smashed. Brother Bryce Meredith wins this fight by first round submission. The final out the first 4, we've got Dimitri taking on Justin Montalvo. For Dimitri, of course, the undefeated Ukrainian 8-0 taking on Montalvo. For Dimitri, coming off of his win against Daniel Scatizzi, winning that fight by unanimous decision at Bellator 291. It's the fight that got him on the map. He was an underdog going into that one, but continues his undefeated streak by beating Scatizzi by unanimous decision. He's 26 years old, fighting out of the Ukraine, taking on Montalvo, who is 5-1, coming off his loss to Archie Colgan. He's 2-1 in Bellator, of course, the 2 wins being Jacob Bone and Corey Samuels, but again, ran into the undefeated Archie Colgan, who, again, sky's the limit for this guy. He's 8-0, taking on Peter Bust in his next fight. We'll see what happens with Colgan. Again, I'm high on Colgan. Montalvo, again, the one loss being Archie Colgan. However, he's got a tough task coming up. This is a really good fight buried on the prelims because, again, Montalvo has shown this capability of getting knockouts in the Bellator cage. But Dimitri, man, all around, I do like his game. I like his striking. I like his grappling. I think all around, I think Dimitri wins the fight. I think he will take this one by unanimous decision. On to the next 4 because there's just a lot of fights. It's an interesting one. We've got Mukmed Burkamov taking on Herman Tirado. Now, it's interesting because of what Burkamov had in his last fight, because, of course, you look at his loss to Lorenz Larkin. The first fight is the no contest, the elbow to the back of the head. They run it back, and Lorenz Larkin just dominates him. Lorenz Larkin runs right through Burkamov. He beats him by first-round knockout. Obviously, Larkin will be on that Chicago card in the Wintrust Arena against AJ McKee. I think that fight's probably going to go AJ McKee's way. However, Burkamov loses the rematch to Larkin. He's 1-1-1 now in Bellator, with the first fight beating the guillotine choke finish over Jaleel Willis. That was all the way back, though, in 2021. Don't get me wrong, I think Burkamov is going to win this fight. We're taking him by first-round sub because on paper, he's the way better fighter than Guam's Herman Tirado, who fought in the PFL in the 2018 season. This is a guy whose last fight was Jake Shields in 2018, where Shields beat him by unanimous decision. Before that, he got choked down in the first round by Magomed Karamov. He actually beat Joao Zeferino on PFL Daytona in 2017, which I guess is all right because Zeferino's a guy who fought in 2021, fought in 2022 with the PFL. So it's not saying much that he beat Zeferino in a close fight by split decision. Before that, fought some in Bellator. His last Bellator appearance comes in 2014 at Bellator 115, the main event being Vitaly Minakov taking on Chet Kongo for the heavyweight championship. Fought in Gladiator Challenge against a bunch of guys who are 0-1. Gladiator Challenge against a Northern California promotion that doesn't really have the best competition sometimes. They have good talent that they produce, like Henry Cejudo's been there before, but still, it's just like, that's not the best promotion either. Burkamov's going to win this fight, first round sub. Enough said about that. Next up, we will have Sergio Casio taking on Jesse Roberts. Going to be going with Roberts to win this one, stay undefeated. He's 6-0. I think he wins this one by decision. Of course, coming off his last fight in ex-MMA, did make his Bellator debut all the way back in 2019. That'd be Bellator 214. Of course, the first fight between Fedor Emelianenko and Ryan Bader from the Forum in Inglewood. But Roberts is coming off a unanimous decision victory in ex-MMA. Obviously, ex-MMA known for their former UFC fighters, but of course, Roberts not one of those guys. He takes on Casio here, who has been around. He's been fighting in Lux a lot, a Mexican regional promotion, on a huge winning streak over there, winning his last fight to retain the Lux Fighting League championship by submission in the 5th round. He's got the skills. Casio is good, making his Bellator debut here. Really good on the ground. He has been finished 4 times on the ground. He's been finished 3 times in the feet. 25-8-1 is the record, so that is a little bit concerning considering he has been finished and guys have gotten the better of him before. That's why I'm taking Roberts to win by decision. I know, again, Casio has been finished on the feet and on the ground before, only lost once by decision. I think this will be the decision loss, though. I just think Roberts as a whole is the way better fighter. I don't know if Roberts is able to get that submission, right? Because, Roberts really good on the ground. We'll see. I think it's definitely out there, of course, because Casio has been finished before. However, he has not been submitted since 2017. So that's why I'm going to take Roberts to win by decision. I think it's a close fight, though, but I think Robert gets a lot of damage done on the ground. Next up, we will have Bobby Soriano taking on Alberto Garcia. Again, Garcia does not even have a picture on Tapology. I think you know what that means. Soriano's going to run right through him. He's 3-0, of course, 3-0 in Bellator. Picked up 2 wins in 2022, 1 in 2021. He does have 1 win by finish in Bellator, and that's what we're going to pick again. I'm going to take Soriano to win this fight. I believe I have him by first-round knockout, just because, again, or I have him by second round knockout, like his first finish in Bellator. Because again, the guy he's fighting here, and Alberto Garcia is 2-0. He's coming off back-to-back wins in Gladiator Challenge. Again, I've talked about Gladiator Challenge. It's not the best promotion. Again, Bellator will pull guys from there because, of course, they're based in San Jose, and Gladiator Challenge doesn't necessarily run shows in San Jose, but they'll run shows like in Visalia, that's more central. That's more Central Valley, but still, they'll run shows up north and in the Central Valley in California. So that's where Bellator will pull a lot of these guys from. They'll pull a lot of AKA guys from Gladiator Challenge as well. But it's just, again, what are we supposed to say here? Soriano's going to run right through him. Again, Garcia is supposed to be a can that, Soriano is supposed to go out there and squash. Our final out the next 4 are, until we get into the individual fight breakdowns. You got an interesting fight here between Ilara Joanne taking on Jenna Bishop. I think Bishop wins. She's 5-0, undefeated. We took her in her last fight against Elena, I do believe. Again, fought in LFA before the Bellator stint, looked pretty good over there, had a couple co-main event spots. She's a really good ground fighter. I think she's able to get Joanne down. I think she's able to have a lot of success down there. Joanne's 3-3 in Bellator. Lost her last fight pretty disappointingly, I would say, to Bruna Ellen. We thought she was going to go out there and win that fight. Surprisingly, won back-to-back fights against Alejandra Lara and Denise Kiaholtz. We'll see what Kiaholtz is able to do against Miko Inaba next month in Chicago. But again, I think Bishop is the better ground fighter. I think Joanne, again, has had some really big highs and really big lows in Bellator. I think this will be continuing, kind of going downhill for her. I think Bishop's ground game is superior in this fight. I think her jiu-jitsu is way better. I think her all-around ground control is better. It's going to be Jenna Bishop to win this fight. I'd like her to take it by unanimous decision. On to the individual fight breakdowns. First up, Duvaljan Yagshimuradov taking on the Spartan Rozanski in this fight. Taking Duvaljan to win this one. I like Yagshimuradov a lot in this fight. I think he takes it by second round TKO. Obviously, Yagshimuradov came in from ACA. He was light heavyweight champion over there. He comes in the Grand Prix, gets kind of dominated by Corey Anderson here, and really uses the wrestling and kind of dominates him down there. He's taking on a guy here in Rozanski who is 1-1 in Bellator, comes in, beats Lee Chadwick, but then loses his next fight to Carl Moore. What Rozanski's good at is his ground game, and that's something that you have to be a little bit concerned of here with Duvaljan, because Duvaljan has been beat on the ground before. Of course, you saw him on the Corey Anderson fight. I know Anderson is, on a different level than some of these other guys, but even in, Russia, Yagshimuradov has, given up his back before. He has been beat down there. Again, that was a long time ago, so I think we're fine with that. But I would be a little bit concerned with the ground game because, again, that's the pathway to victory definitely for Rozanski in this fight, is trying to get Yagshimuradov down, trying to really limit his striking base. However, I still think Duvaljan wins the fight. I think he's the way better striker. I think he's able to keep this fight standing. I think Duvaljan's really just going to punch his head in throughout this entire fight. Again, Rozanski losing his last fight isn't great. I think Duvaljan and Yagshimuradov, after dropping his first two in Bellator, is going to go on a pretty nice 3-fight run because, again, coming off back-to-back wins over Rafael Carvalho and then a huge win over Julius Ingliskas. I think Yagshimuradov gets it. I'm going to take him to win this fight by second round TKO. I think he will get the finish in this fight because I think the striking game again is just so much better for Yagshimuradov. Next up, we will have Romero Cotton taking on Grant Neal. Now, Romero Cotton was a guy who was once undefeated, ran into one Dalton Rosta. He came in there and got flatlined, right? Rosta's good until he ran into Aaron Jeffrey, then he lost as well. So both two prospects that Bellator had in the middleweight division both lost because, again, they got rid of Cotton's undefeated run by Rosta, and then Rosta got beat by Aaron Jeffrey. So Cotton's back. It's his first fight since the loss. He's taking on Grant Neal. It's a tough fight for Cotton. It kind of feels like Bellator has somewhat given up on him after the loss to Rosta because they could have easily just given Romero Cotton a lower level guy like they do, like Bryce Meredith gets, like Bobby Soriano gets. They straight away give him Grant Neal, which I think is a tough fight. I know Neal isn't, Neal's good. He's a good wrestler. He's got solid striking. He's got the one loss to Alex Easy Polizzi by split decision back in 2021, but back-to-back wins since then against Christian Edwards and Carl Albertson. I think Grant Neal's the way better striker here. Yes, Romero Cotton does have the wrestling. He is a pretty, he's a guy who's got a lot of strength for being a 185-pounder, especially for being 5'10 as well. But of course, the wrestling base, but still, it's tough. I think it's a really tough fight for Cotton because I think Neal's able to do enough on the feet, and I think Neal's wrestling is better as well. Again, Cotton kind of ran through a bunch of, to be honest, he ran through a lot of cans in his Bellator run until he got Dalton Rosta, and Rosta put him down and knocked him out in the third round with a left hook. I think Grant Neal's the better fighter all around. I'm going to take Grant Neal to win by unanimous decision. One of these guys is going to continue as a big prospect for Bellator. The other guy is kind of just going to fall down the card. I think Neal gets it. I think he wins it by unanimous decision. Okay, next up we have a fight at 145 pounds, which again, the way Bellator's 145-pound division works, again, you're like a couple fights away from the title at all points, and it's a big fight, especially in the career for Sarah McMann, because McMann can definitely put herself next to the title shot with a victory here. Leah McCourt, again, is a marketable fighter Bellator has got. So again, I think if she wins, they probably go for the title shot as well. So really, you're looking at, in my opinion, a number one contenders fight here. They're not going to give the fight to Sarah Collins after beating Shanine Kavanaugh. They're just not going to do that. So you get the more marketable names in McCann and Liam McCourt. McCourt, of course, being Liam McCourt, and then Sarah McMann being a former UFC title challenger who's made event at a UFC pay-per-view before. You've got two bigger names in the weight class now. And for Liam McCourt, again, 1-2 in her last 3 fights, dropping a fight to Shanique Kavanagh, beating Danya Silva, which she's supposed to do, and then losing to Kat Zingano in her last one. Obviously, Zingano, got the title shot out of that fight. But for Sarah McMann, of course, it was an interesting exit from the UFC. Again, she is old. She's, 43 years old. But she had 13 fights in the UFC, went 7-6 over there. Lost to, at one point, the champion, Juliana Pena, a fight that got Pena the world championship opportunity. Beat Carol Hossa, who's still in the top 15. Booked twice against Aspen Ladd. Fight doesn't happen because of Aspen Ladd twice. And the UFC says, all right, we're done with Aspen Ladd, but we're also done with Sarah McMann as well. Ladd goes to the PFL. McMann goes to Bellator. And in McMahon's first fight, she goes out there and beats Arlene Blencowe like she's supposed to do. And Blencowe, again, a former title challenger. Now, again, basically almost all of Bellator's 145-pounders have fought Chris Cyborg at this point because Cyborg doesn't have challengers. She just doesn't. It's just kind of getting ridiculous. We're going to talk about Cyborg eventually, but Cyborg fought Arlene Blencowe twice, and Blencowe got the second title fight after beating Danya Silva and Pam Sorensen, right? Those just aren't great names. Again, I think McMann wins this fight. I don't think Leah McCourt is able to fight off the wrestling, because that's what Sarah McMann's going to do, an Olympic level wrestler. She, again, that's what she is. I think she really goes out there and dominates. I don't think Leah McCourt's got answers. I think McCourt's decent, but when you give her a name, again, if she loses to Kat Zingano, I think Sarah McMann would have a really good chance against Kat Zingano right now. Zingano did not fight the best names in Bellator either. They kind of booked her right to get her to Chris Cyborg eventually. Again, if Leah McCourt's losing to Shanique Kavanagh, I know it's a very different fight with Shanique Kavanagh than it is with Sarah McMann, but just on a levels perspective, I think McMann just goes out there and absolutely dominates. McMann wins 30-27. She beats Leah McCourt, sends her back down the card. Sarah McMann probably puts herself next for a world title opportunity. Looking at this next one here, we've got Kamaka III taking on Henry Corrales. I'm going to take Corrales to win this fight by decision. I've picked Kamaka III a lot in my lifetime, I guess. But just Corrales, again, a guy who's been around Bellator for a long time. He's 9-6. Again, this is a guy who came into Bellator, lost 3 straight fights against straight killers. I mean, the guy comes in, loses to Daniel Strauss, then loses to Emmanuel Sanchez, then loses to Patricio Pitbull. Then he was actually booked against AJ McKee. He got hurt, comes back, wins 5 fights in a row. The biggest one, of course, being the Aaron Pico fight. Then gets Darren Caldwell, loses, gets Juan Archuleta, loses. Again, Corrales has fought some really tough guys in Bellator, and especially his last fight, he gets a fight that he's 100% supposed to lose. Plus 400 dog against Nurmagomedov, wins the fight by unanimous decision against the undefeated 10 Nurmagomedov in a fight that Corrales was a plus 400 dog in. Corrales is back now. He's going to get Kamaka III. I think he beats Kamaka. Again, Kamaka just... He's been up and down so far in Bellator, again, the one down being the loss to Justin Gonzalez. He is 5-1 in the promotion. The Gonzalez fight was close, a fight that he was a pretty sizable, actually it was kind of a split fight on the odds, but Kamaka's come back. He's beat Kevin Bohm. He's beat Adley Edwards. My problem is, again, Kamaka has not fought the level of competition that Corrales has fought. And I think Corrales is just a step above Kamaka in every kind of asset of things here. Again, Kamaka is not going to be the type of guy that's going to go out and get a finish. His first TKO win was his fight against Kevin Bohm in December of 2022. That's just not how he fights. He's kind of a point fighter who is entertaining, but I think Corrales is just all around better. Of course, Kamaka made his name basically by getting cut from the UFC after 3 straight close fights. It is what it is, right? But Corrales, I think, is way better here. Again, coming off the win over Nurmagomedov, which I think is huge for the career. I think Corrales goes in there. I think he boxes up Kamaka here, and all around, I think if he needs it on the ground, if he needs it on the feet especially, it's probably going to be a striking game at Corrales that is going to win him this fight. I think the power's the difference. I think his volume's going to be better. Give me Henry Corrales to win. It should be a fun fight. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be back and forth. Kamaka can take damage really well, but I'm taking the underdog. I really like Corrales in the spot. He was an underdog in his last fight. Give me the dog again. Corrales to take this one by unanimous decision. Next up, Davian Franklin taking on Slim Trabelsi in this fight. I like Trabelsi to win this one. You look at a guy here in Davian Franklin, 6-1, taking on the undefeated heavyweight, 5-0, and Slim, of course, fighting out of Poland, but originating from Tunisia, 5-0. This will be the Bellator debut. Look what he did in his last fight. Winning the Aries FC Heavyweight Championship. Was a vacant title. He goes out there and absolutely dominates on the ground with his ground and pound, taking on a guy who at the time was 12-0-1. Again, it was a fighter coming out of Uzbekistan who really had not fought anyone before that Aries FC fight. But Aries is a pretty good regional promotion that's, again, featured on Fight Pass. It's a really good regional. and he goes in there and he wins the heavyweight championship. Now, he was booked in the UFC, actually, against Parker Porter last year. He had to withdraw from the fight. The Bellator takes him instead. Again, that just kind of shows you the level of where this guy is at. Again, I know Parker Porter's not a high-level heavyweight at all, but still he's booked in the UFC spot against a guy in Parker Porter that he probably was supposed to go out there and win. Now he gets Davion Franklin. Now, again, I don't know how Davion Franklin's going to keep up with the wrestling game here. I know, again, Franklin, he got submitted by Marcelo Gomez 2 fights ago. He beat Kasim Aras by decision. He had the close fight against Seed Soma. He's a good striker. He's got power, but I really don't think that he's able to keep up with the wrestling here. I think Slim's going to really dominate. I think he's a way better grappler. The Sambo's going to be there. He's a -175 favorite. I think he goes in there and gets the finish in the first round. I think it's going to be a TKO finish. I think it's going to be a takedown. It's going to be the bombs that he throws, known as hammer fists. I think Trabelsi wins this fight. I think he gets the job done. Again, this is a guy that was signed to the UFC at one point. He's the reigning Aries FC heavyweight champion. I'm going to take him to stand defeated, go to 6-0. I like him to take this fight by first round knockout. The UFC's loss is Bellator's treasure, or I don't know. They're going to capitalize on it. I don't know what I was trying to say there. Okay, on to the 3 title fights. The first being Liz Carmouche versus Ilima-Lei Macfarlane. It's for the flyweight championship. It's an interesting fight because you look at a fighter here in Ilima-Lei Macfarlane who's 13-2. The 2 losses being the back-to-back, Juliana Velasquez, she lost the championship to. She loses to Justine Kish after that. Then you're thinking, what does she do? Well, she goes into the Bruna Ellen fight. It's a fight that she's a slight favorite in, misses weight by 4 pounds, wins it, and then barely gets by Kana Watanabe by split decision. It's a very close fight. I thought Watanabe was going to go out there and win, but Ilima-Lei Macfarlane goes out there and picks up the victory. This is the only fight that makes sense, in all honesty, that Bellator can make at the flyweight division, just because, again, Ilima-Lei Macfarlane is by far their biggest name against their other biggest name in Liz Carmouche. My question is, how does Macfarlane win this fight? Because she's not going to be able, when Ilima-Lei Macfarlane had her title run, she was scrappy on the feet. She'd get into into sort of brawls, but then when she needed to, she could take the fight down and she could go out there and get the submission. She's not going to be able to do that against Liz Carmouche. It's just not going to happen. Carmouche is too good down there. Carmouche has gone out and, she had the... in the UFC, she was not getting finishes. She was winning a lot of fights by decision, losing a lot of fights by decision. Well, since she came into Bellator, every fight but one, the Vanessa Porto fight, has been a finish. Deanna Bennett, submission in the 3rd round. Kana Watanabe, the TKO in the 1st round. TKO of Juliana Velasquez in the 4th round. I know that's a questionable stoppage by Mike Beltran, but still comes back, wins the 2nd fight by armbar in the 2nd round, and then gets a absolute layup fight in the rematch with Deanna Bennett, submitting her in the 4th round with an arm triangle choke. I think the grappling's too good. I think Liz Carmouche is just too good of a grappler to lose this fight. She's going to go out there. She's going to dominate Ilima-Lei Macfarlane on the ground. I think eventually she will find the submission. That's why we're going to go 3rd round sub for Liz Carmouche in this fight. I think she retains the belt. I think she's by far the best 125-pounder Bellator does have. I think this might be it for Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, honestly, because if there's no more pathway to the championship, where does she go? She's talked about not liking the sport anymore and wanting to step away from the sport. All signs point to Liz Carmouche winning the fight. Carmouche is going to retain the belt, 3rd round sub. She's too good down there. She's too physical. Liz Carmouche retains the flyweight championship by 3rd round submission. On to the co-main event. Another women's title fight, but it will be for the featherweight championship. Chris Cyborg taking on Kat Zingano. Now, Zingano finally gets that fight against Cyborg. You've been thinking that she's going to get that, right? She's kind of avoided it due to potential steroids with Chris Cyborg, which, okay, but it's why'd you sign up in the first place? Because this is the eventual fight that Bellator has wanted, right? After that UFC run, which was up and down, of course, she comes into the UFC, beats Miesha Tate, beats Amanda Nunes, fights Ronda Rousey, loses to Juliana Pena, loses to Ketlen Vieira, beats Marion Renault, loses to Megan Anderson, the toe poke fight, gets cut by the UFC, comes out, beats a 6-5 Gabrielle Holloway, where she's a -900 favorite in, beats her by decision, then submits Olivia Parker, who she's a -900 favorite in, beats Pam Sorensen, beats Leah McCourt. The McCourt fight's a good win. Kind of saw it coming, though. Now Zingano gets Chris Cyborg. My issue is, what is a 41-year-old Kat Zingano going to do against Chris Cyborg? Cyborg is just better everywhere. I know Cyborg is getting up there. She is 38 years old. She beat one Gabrielle Holloway in her last boxing fight. She has not fought MMA since early 2022 against Arlene Blanco. That's fine. She went the distance with Blanco. She still put a beating on her. Chris Cyborg is just too good for every single featherweight that Bellator has. I think the only fight for Chris Cyborg that would be somewhat entertaining, honestly, in all of MMA, because considering her weight, it's Larissa Pacheco. It's the only fight. Kayla Harrison, sure, that is still a fight too, but it's Pacheco and Harrison. That's why when PFL buys Bellator, they need to combine these weight classes, and either they put Cyborg in the PFL season, where I don't, like, again, it's free money up until she eventually fights Harrison or Pacheco, right? They could really easily just book her that way till the postseason, but that's what they need to do with Chris Cyborg. Because this fight's still, I know there's momentum around Kat Zingano, that's great. Chris Cyborg's still so much better. Cyborg is so much better than Zingano. Her striking game's that good. She's going to dominate Kat Zingano. At no point in Kat Zingano's career has she been to the point where she can compete with Chris Cyborg. That doesn't change now. It doesn't change when Zingano's 41 and Cyborg's 38. It doesn't matter. Chris Cyborg absolutely dominates the fight. She shows why she's the best featherweight in the world. I think she'd still beat Larissa Pacheco right now. Chris Cyborg wins by first round knockout. I think she'd beat Kayla Harrison too. On to the main event. It is what it is. Usman Nurmagomedov is a huge favorite in this fight. Now, I was at Usman Nurmagomedov's last fight in San Jose, California, where he beat Benson Henderson. Tremendous fight. He goes out there, boom, question mark, kicks him, takes it back, rear naked choke. Tremendous. He now gets Brent Primus here, who's 12-3. Primus has been around Bellator for a while, of course. He is the former world champion after he beat Michael Chandler, given it was the ankle injury to Chandler in New York City, but still Chandler went back and won the belt back right away. But he's the former champion in Brent Primus, trying to regain his title here. Now, he was a late replacement into the Grand Prix. Obviously, it's a Grand Prix fight. Late replacement. It was originally supposed to be Sidney Outlaw taking on Usman Nurmagomedov. Outlaw got popped, I believe, right? I think that's how that went. It was supposed to be Outlaw versus Mansour Barnoui. Outlaw got popped. In comes Brent Primus to take on Mansour Barnoui. He beats him by unanimous decision. However, Mansour Barnoui has lost to JJ Wilson since then. He just beat Adam Piccolotti in Bellator. He's 1-2 now in the promotion. I know he's really good at Road FC, but right now Barnoui, again, 1-2 in the promotion. How much weight can you really put on that Primus win? And then also, again, 2 fights ago, he got knocked down by Alexander Chablis and finished on the ground. Now, Chablis is really good. This is the fight we're building to. It's going to be Alexander Chablis versus Usman Nurmagomedov. I was at Tufik Musayev versus Chablis too, and okay, it was kind of a boring fight, let's be honest with you, until the 3rd round, though. Chablis kicks the body. You thought it was a groin strike. Nope, it wasn't. It was a kick to the body that won Chablis the fight. Chablis really good. He'll be taking on Patricky Pitbull in November in Chicago. However, that's not what we're getting to yet. This fight, again, Brent Primus is 2-2 in his last 4. Wins over Mansour Barnoui, win over Benson Henderson, lose to Islam Mamedov, and lost to Alexander Chablis. Again, former champion, sure, he's been around Bellator a long time, but what does he have for Usman Nurmagomedov here? Nurmagomedov, I think, can outstrike a 38-year-old Brent Primus, and I also think he can definitely outgrapple him, because that's what he does. We'll see how much Usman Nurmagomedov plays on the feet. You saw that against Henderson again. He was a minus 2,000 favorite in that fight. It was Henderson's eventual retirement fight, because he retired right after in San Jose. Usman Nurmagomedov has not been in a competitive fight just yet. This is not going to be a competitive fight. Again, he went the distance with Patricky Pitbull in kind of a boring wrestling match. Again, he did enough to win the fight, obviously won every single round. However, in this fight, again, I think he absolutely dominates Brent Primus. I think he's going to go out there and show, again, why he's the best lightweight in Bellator, and why he could be definitely, I think, a top 5 lightweight in the UFC as well. Again, a fight that a lot of people want to see. It would make sense. It would be fun. Makhachev versus Nurmagomedov. Would ever happen? Probably not. 2 different promotions. It probably would never happen. But still, that's how good Nurmagomedov is. This is a very interesting fight with Brent Primus. It's a fight that I think he's definitely going to win. I don't know how much he plays around the feet again, but eventually you're going to get to that final outcome, and the final outcome is going to be Usman Nurmagomedov winning the fight by first round submission. So folks, thank you all for watching our Bellator 300 predictions here on the channel. We'll be back in about a month for Bellator 301, of course, from Chicago, Illinois. MMA coming up on the channel every single week, UFC, PFL, and Bellator, so stay on the lookout for all 3 of those. Give a Sam for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below if you have not yet. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. Give a Sam for watching, and Mamba forever.